In this learning task, you're going to be using what you just learned about food chains to build some food chains for the desert ecosystem. So in part 2 of this lesson, you just thought about some basic interactions between organisms in this ecosystem. And now you're going to go a little bit farther and think more about who's the producer, who's the consumer, who's the decomposer, and how do they fit together in a food chain. Let me show you how. So on the next slides, you have a lot of information about what these different animals eat and also who eats them. So whether it's an animal or a plant, you're going to find out more about either what they eat or which animals eat them. You do not need to read this whole slide right away. Instead, I suggest that you come down to build your first food chain. So let's say I'm just going to choose an animal in this food chain that I want to include. I like the coyote, so I'm going to choose a coyote. I need to come back and do a little research on my coyote. So I'm going to come back to the next slide up. And here I see coyotes feed at night on mice and other rodents, rabbits, hares, and sometimes mule deer and pronghorn antelope. It also eats saguaro, cactus fruit, mesquite beans, and other plant parts. Sometimes digs burrows, which it goes into to escape heat. Okay, so some of this is about its behavior, feeding at night, how it escapes heat, but this middle part tells me what it eats. And one of those things it eats are rodents. So rodents are any small animals similar to mice. So rats would fall under rodents as well. So let me come back to my slide. I'm going to click back over to slide 28. And I said I wanted to use the coyote and pull him in. And he eats rodents, so kangaroo rats definitely fall under that. So I'm going to pull in my kangaroo rat into my model. Now I need to come back up here and check out, what does a kangaroo rat eat? Can I pull that into my food chain model? So I'm going to look here, kangaroo rat, there it is. Burrows or builds mounds, eats seeds of prickly pear, mesquite, and other plants, also eats some insects, provides food for owls, coyotes, snakes, and other predators. Jumps to escape predators. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be eating plants. So let me come back here and see what plant I have on slide 28. And I have some desert grasses. So I'm going to pull that here. Now, I have the start of a food chain. Producer, consumer, consumer. So I can take my labels and label these by clicking and dragging. Okay, so there's the beginning of my food chain. Now, I know I also need to have something that's going to break down the dead matter when this coyote or kangaroo rat or even the desert grasses die. And so the decomposer that I have to choose from is a fungus or fungi. So I'm going to put that down here, and I'm going to give it the label decomposer. Okay, so here's the beginning of my model. It's missing something. Do you remember what? Think about what you saw in the videos or even in the last slides in part 3. Okay, my model's missing arrows. Is that what you were thinking too? So I'm going to come over to the drawing tools over here, and I'm going to grab an arrow from this line tool. So I go to arrow, and I remember that the arrows always point from what is eaten to the animal or organism that's eating it. So the grass is eaten by the kangaroo. So I start at the grass and I bring my arrow over to the kangaroo. And if I click away, you can see that's an arrow. I need to come back here and click on arrow again to make my cursor an arrow. So now I'm going to go from the kangaroo rat to the coyote. Now for the decomposer, I have a choice. I could think like, well, this food chain is just going to show how the coyote decomposes by fungi breaking it down. So click on my arrow and draw this arrow down to the decomposer like that. If I want to, I can add more details to my food chain. Some of the food chains you saw in the past showed how the decomposers then break things down to add them to the soil for the plants so that the matter goes back to the plants. So I could add that if I wanted to. Another choice I might make in my food chain, if I don't want to do that, is I might want to also think about, well, with the kangaroo rat, parts of it that aren't eaten by the coyote are left on the ground. They'll be decomposed by fungi. And same with dead grass will eventually be decomposed as well. So I could also choose to put arrows like that. You kind of get to decide how you want to build your food chain model. Is it a traditional model, producer to consumer to decomposer, or are you wanting to show some extra arrows as well? Okay, so good luck. Remember, you're going to be building 3 food chains. Hopefully on this first slide, you can come up with a different food chain than I did. And you're going to be using these 2 slides as your research slides, figuring out who eats who. Good luck.